Hello, friends. Welcome to Islington Listens, wisdom from a community of faith that doesn't think the same, vote the same, or love the same, but we are trying our best to follow in the way of Jesus with compassion and hope.
I want you just to repeat the words in your heart. God will delight. When was the last time you said the word delight? Just invite you to sit with it just for a minute. Delight. What comes to mind might be the taste of your favorite treat. It might be the feeling after a time of exercise, or it seems there's some pickleball competition happening a lot lately. I wonder if it's spending time with people you love or you haven't seen in a while. I wonder if it's the quiet because life is busy and you need a moment to capture that. God delights in you. God invites you into a way of joy. And there can be joy blockers in your life. You might be carrying them. You might have turned to the person you're sitting beside, and that could be it. So we'll work on that later. There's healing prayer out this door, or you might have left them at home. It might be a pocket full of guilt, which is not so helpful to joy. God invites you to put that down, to begin a new day as the sun rises. It might be the block of joy is worry, trying to control tomorrow or the next day, or your deepest of fears, which shows up in the middle of the night. I invite you just to lay that down, to let God delight in all of it and hold what you do not need to hold. It could be perfection. Could be wearing it like a backpack and taking it to every Christmas party and wondering why it just doesn't quite measure up to what you'd hope for. Or it could be the joy suckers in your life, and we're not going to go one by one. I did learn in the choir that there are certain voices that are pingers and soakers, but there don't seem to be any joy suckers. But the way the voices blend together, you have to keep the pingers and the soakers not beside each other, right, Jason? Isn't that it? Something like that? Yeah. So you can self-declare if delight comes easy or you're a joy sucker this morning, but try not to hang out only with the joy suckers, because it can change how the whole room can feel. We light the pink candle today because the pink candle stands for gaudete, right? Which means rejoice. It is a reminder to people all through the ages. If you're one of the people who thinks life was better back then, remember we were lighting this joy candle in the middle of the plague. We were lighting this joy candle in the middle of crusades. We were lighting this joy candle in the middle of much unrest in the world. Generations. This is not the first. So that candle calls us to the words of Scripture, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. And we heard this story with different names, because really, if we were honest, we have our real names and then we have kind of the names that other people give us. They might have given you a nickname, or they might have pigeoned you into a certain role from the beginning of time, and you're still wearing that t-shirt. Big sister, little brother, one who analyzes, one who talks all the time, one who falls asleep at the table. I don't know what your t-shirt is this morning, but I invite you also to put that down and wear the shirt that reminds you that you are beloved, which then lets you hear a story about a pregnant teenager and an old guy who was engaged to someone who he found out might be different than who he thought he was. Anybody married to someone like that you kind of signed up and you love them, and then you find out lots of interesting things about them along the way? Mary and Joseph, yeah, thanks for being so honest, Kim. I appreciate it. Like one person, like jumping. So Mary says yes to God. You know, this isn't a time for us to analyze how you feel about angels, but the mystery tugs at us in all different ways. And Mary says yes, and Joseph needs a little bit more. He needs a dream and an angel, so he gets both, and he says yes. But they don't say it out of fear. They say it out of love. They say yes to being God-bearers. Not because they thought it would be easy or it would take them to the front of the line, but it feels like the right thing to do. And you know what it's like when you say yes to something and you shouldn't have. It's a secret to joy. The yes comes from you. There's lots of responsibilities and shoulds, but in both of these stories, even though they were afraid or they weren't sure how it would play out, they come from a long line of people who over and over and over said yes to God. And for us as Christians, lately, something has gotten lost. Somehow, in our first yes, be it in our first breath of life when we're born into God's love, or along the way when we have a deep connection to the holy or the awe, we can lose our joy in the midst of that. Life gets a little bit complicated. Speaker and author Angela Williams-Goral writes, "Not only do we need permission to be honest about emotions like sadness and anger and fear, we now need permission to be joy-filled. We need this permission from other people and for ourselves. We can give one another and ourselves permission to experience joy in many ways." You do not need to tell a child that they have permission to experience joy. We come wired for it, but along the way, we can easily forget. And we can listen to certain news stories, we can fill our hearts and minds with the worries of the world, and then almost feel guilty or worried or unsure about why we deserve or where joy could be found. There's lots of people telling you what it means to be Christian, but actually deep in our story is the sense that we know about joy. So I invite you to hear these words, inviting you to not hesitate. They're written by Mary Oliver, my favorite poet. See if you can find yourself. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed, but still life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happens better than all the riches or power in the world. Could be anything, but very likely you notice it in an instant, when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty, for joy is not made to be a crumb. Can you just turn and repeat that to your neighbor, if you heard me right? Joy is not made to be a crumb. Like, turn and look someone in the eyes so like you mean it for a minute. Yeah, right? It's not the lint at the bottom of your pocket or your purse, okay? Joy brings goodness to the world. Research shows that joyful people aren't selfish. In fact, they are more, not less likely to volunteer their time, donate their money, and help others. The relationship between these pro-social behaviors and happiness could not be explained by how much money people made or their gender or their age or their religion. There are gifts to be gained for everyone around when you're simply actually joyful too. Now, there's lots of research, because we could stay all day talking about how food is connected to joy. For some of us, that's the taste of something we love. For others, it's fueling ourselves well so that we can experience and have the energy for joy. We won't divide, because at this time of year, you have it all happening at once. But it affects your mood, it affects how you show up, and it affects what you bring for social connection, right? You don't want to be the one who arrives at the door empty-handed. And we all know that physical activity moves us closer to joy. Whether that's chair yoga or walking around your hallways in the condo to make sure that you walk to Bethlehem if anyone's just getting on board. We know that Joan Shepherd is winning because she's already been to Bethlehem like 15 times, which is 180,000 steps, right, between now and Christmas Eve if you want to get moving. But we know that we feel better when we move. And I didn't know that the third thing is actually writing, which I don't know when the last time you picked up a nice pen was, because often we're doing our writing electronically. And not a gratitude journal and not another podcast that you've heard before about how to change your life. But what if just tonight you wrote down 3 good things? 3 things that went well. Try it for a week. See what happens. See what you start to notice. They say that act medically can break up depression and anxiety. It allows you to see differently those around you. And when you do it, if people have found that they like doing it so much, they just keep on doing it. 3 good things. I'm giving you them already, like best sermon you ever heard and most fun Christmas party. No, and the Christmas concert that's happening tonight. Have some fun on purpose. Now, my brother told me once, I would go to church more if my kids really wanted to be there, like if it was more fun. And so I've been working my whole life. I know, Abby's like, that isn't even true. Dad never knows exactly. I know. But there is something about it. When you're invited to something fun, it does invite you to want to go in a different way, right? You feel that in your heart. And you know, even when it's supposed to be fun and you should have just stayed home, you can't even override that joy. It's hard to fake it till you make it. So today we're having a party, so it's a good invitation. And my brother can take my ribbing, so don't worry, we'll talk about it after. But I had another minister friend who said, I don't go to meetings anymore, I only go to parties. Right? What does it feel like? It's like, I got a 10:30 meeting Sunday morning, can't wait to be there. Thanks everybody for showing up. And there's a church in Colorado called The Refuge, and their tagline is throwing parties, sharing stories, finding hope, and practicing the ways of Jesus as best we can. Here, we say every week we don't think the same or vote the same or love the same, but we're trying our best to follow in the way of Jesus. We're ready here for a fun infusion. So if you came today, you're invited to just step a little closer into that joy. Because author Sarah Bessey says, joy is never intellectually or emotionally or spiritually dishonest. It's real. It certainly is not more doubling down on, it's fine, we're fine, everything is fine. Things are clearly and obviously not fine. Joy isn't a good time earned through denial or performative sentimentality or spiritual bypassing. You cannot get to the empty tomb without going through the cross. You cannot go through the valley without the experience of loss. You cannot climb the mountain without the moments of it being hard. That's the truth of our story. Redemption is real, and renewal is real, and joy is still real. You would not believe the stories of loss and transition and change that are being held in this room right now. You couldn't even begin to guess them. And yet joy continues to show up. It's a kiss in the kitchen. It's an underlined poem. It's a heron gliding low over the water. It's nurses who stand vigil at bedsides and teachers who read stories aloud and sanitation workers who put on superhero costumes and dress up to collect trash so kids who've been stuck inside sick have something to look forward to on the days where they're home. It's communion and old hymns. It's iron gray skies and hearing the words, I love you. It is the realness of a Savior who sits in our sorrow. It is chicken noodle soup simmering on the stove, and forgiveness. Our suffering and our sadness don't make joy untrue. In fact, the prophets invite us into joy as an act of resistance. For the truth of joy stands and meets despair. It looks right at it. So you're invited today to a party. In fact, we try and make it like a party here every day. Sometimes we get it better than others. There will be children at this party. They may take all of the cookies ahead of you, but there's enough cake for everybody else. If you don't know the children, you don't need to know their name. They'll be wearing a button today that says joy, so you can just call them that. For there are children in our community, and we celebrate that. And they bring us joy. And there are teenagers in our community, and we celebrate that because we know all the other places they could be. And there are young adults in our community who are learning to be, I can't even remember now, Leslie, what the long line of Ryan's program is. Like studying whales and saving the oceans. We have a few of those. We have some doctors, some nurses. We have some young ones who are changing the world with their art and their creativity. And you won't even know because they're humble. And they're working 2 jobs to figure out how to be a grown-up. So we hold them, and we let our joy meet theirs. And we channel Mary, who said yes when it was hard. We channel her humility, because first she said, "Why me?" She said, "Are you sure? Did you get the wrong house?" And then she responded, "My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior. For God has been mindful of the humble state of God's servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is God's name. God's mercy extends from generation to generation. God has performed mighty deeds and scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. God has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. God has done that with the sound of the cry of a little one. God's filled the hungry with good things and sent those away who are not humble empty. God has helped God's people, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and the descendants forever. And that promise is not just for Mary or for Joseph. It's definitely not for the ones who come to church the most. It is for all of us. And if I was braver, I might have sung that, but I think you can come tonight and hear that sung in a different way. For that was her response, not just to pray, but to sing. And singing, well, it's praying twice. And when you're not sure how to find joy, you need that joy playlist. I can't make your joy playlist, for you know what it is that lifts your spirit. Bethel's got like 100, so if you need some extra, she's usually singing everywhere she goes. You have songs on this day that you still love and prayers that you rest in. I was having a hard day on Wednesday, and Nora had asked me to drive her to school, and I said yes with not as much of a loving heart as I could have. But halfway to school, and it took us 15 minutes to turn left, I said, I could use a prayer. And she looked at me, rolled her eyes, and was like, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." I was like, yes, she knows it. And B, so you might not even know that the prayer you need is just right in front of you. You just have to ask for it. It's there in the candles you light and the lines from Mary's song that still come to your lips. For you are God-bearer. And joy, yes, the real joy of Jesus. Well, it keeps meeting us for the first time over and over and over. And somehow it still feels like a friend. And the one thing that makes sense in the midst of all of this is that joy will make you glad. So receive it. Don't control it. Let there be room for improvising so you could play it again and reclaim it. Tear up the script that tells you what joy should really be. Look for it in the most surprising of places. You may have to write the things down that you've been let down by where joy didn't show up. Maybe you want to write them down, toss them into a fire on a full moon, whatever it takes for you to actually let it down, not just say that you have. And then you want to hold on to the song you learned in Sunday school, the friend who stayed by your side during chemo, the teacher who came along at the right time for you, the prayers of your grandmothers or your ancestors, the hymns that somehow are the ones you hum late at night when you think no one hears you, and the way you still want to say thank you when you see the sun rise or set on the horizon. Know in your heart, friends, that the song of love begins with a note of joy. It's enough of an answer. It's enough of an invitation for you to say yes on this day and always. May it be so.
Thanks for listening, friends. For other ways to connect, go to islingtonunited.org. May God's wisdom and love keep finding you.